Training doesn't work if no one's paying attention. We've all sat through the boring stuff. But there are ways to actually connect with people and make your training resonate with your learners. So let's talk about all the ways to make learning stick. All right, team. So let's talk about training today. So we see all the time with the corporations that we work with, they're looking for compliance training. So we do all these assessments, we review all of their, different training formats. Do you think that most corporations are looking to check a box, or do you think they're looking to change behavior?
I think it's probably the majority that want to check the compliance box. But that is also why some partner with us, is so that they can do it really well, but they just want to have the solution to apply to the law, apply to standards. And it just seems like the rarity where they want to actually provide something that's going to achieve a sound learning outcome, a really high quality learning outcome. I think the consequence of that is a little bit more of an ineffective program.
I think part of what they struggle with is, and what we hear often, or at least I do, I'm sure you guys do too, is that they don't have time to do it. Right? They can't pull out an hour to send everybody to training all the time. There's some organizations that are more able to facilitate some stuff like that. But when you have some organizations that just, they're employing thousands of people, and to pull them out for an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour worth of de-escalation training, awareness training, that's a big ask. Like, they're still paying these people. They still have their, 8-hour shift that they need to do. So now they're going to do that on top of it. So really finding a way to capture that. I mean, obviously we go with like a micro learning model for a lot of it, so that we can capture, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, before and after shift, stuff like that, to able to fit that in. But definitely time is a big struggle that we get a lot with our folks.
So because of that, one thing that we see, and one thing that's included in when we build these comprehensive programs for organizations, is our e-learnings. And we seem to get a lot of really good feedback on our e-learnings versus other e-learnings. Why do you think that is?
Probably the engagement. I mean, a lot of folks, when they respond back, they talk about how concisely the message is communicated, how clearly the message is communicated, but done so in a manner that's compelling.
Right.
And I think I think we do a pretty good job at just communicating the message in a way that people enjoy receiving. And, so it's kind of hitting the compliance box, yeah, but doing so in a way where people are like, they're getting bought into what the training is trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think, one thing that I love about adults in this learning environment is they are not interested in wasting their time. So it's like, how quickly can you tell me how this applies to what I do, or why I need this information? And then how quickly can I receive this information? But they really want to be able to relate to the training. So I think by telling stories, whether it's our e-learning and we have all this fantastic footage and we're telling this beautiful story, or it's our in-person trainings or virtual trainings, we don't sit there and say, so this next slide, and hit every bullet point. We try to relate it to a story in their workplace and show them how this stuff is actually applicable to their day-to-day. But it's, creating that awareness. And I think also through our e-learnings, I think what we do really well is, yes, we tell that story, but we also gear our training towards all different types of demographics, right? So all different types of learners. So you have words on screen, you have beautiful, footage that's shown, you have it narrated, eloquently. And so no matter what your learning style is, you're going to pick that up. And then of course, as much engagement as possible. And so we try to make it, anytime you can make it interactive, I think that's key. But Corey, you mentioned something about microlearnings. So we're seeing this whole trend in this industry. Why do you think microlearnings are so powerful? And same with you, Jake. Like, why do you see that a lot of people are really receptive to the concept of these microlearnings?
I mean, I think they're being extremely receptive to them, one, from a time standard, right? Because they're able to fit in a 5-minute video, after somebody, punches in. They're able to watch a 5-minute video, get something out of it too. But when you're forced to even make a micro learning, you're really kind of forced to like, what's the meat and potatoes? What's the nut and bolts that they actually need to know? And you really end up forcing yourself to remove a lot of the fluff. Like, okay, what's the important information these guys need to gather, and not put a bunch of fluff in it and try to extend this out to an hour-long video? Well, we're going to break it down into smaller series as they can watch over whether it's a week or a 6-month period. They can watch a half a dozen videos and get a lot from it, which I think is good. I think it's good. I think it's extremely important as we start tailoring training to individual organizations and individuals in the organizations, is you relating it specifically to the challenges that they're dealing with, especially in person too, right? Because everybody remembers a story. So when you can bring in stories and talk about real life experiences that people in your organization are having, the struggles, maybe the way they handled it, right or wrong and different, but there's something to be gained and to learn from that. So like when you're able to do that in-person training and then reinforce it with micro learnings and bring some of those stories in there, I think it's extremely helpful.
It aligns with a lot of the ways that people are just consuming content now today anyway.
Right. Yep.
Like the TikToks.
Generation. Yep.
Yeah. Like, I mean, would some people love to learn through a podcast? Probably. But an employer is probably not going to sign off on that either. So it's like, just because of how much longer those are. But Stace, what's the value? So like one of the big things when we're working with clients is like making sure that they hit all of the objectives.
Right.
Right. So what's the importance of that? Like how can we talk about like making sure that there's a learning outcome and all of those different things. Like when we're talking to folks, how are you helping clients get successful in those areas and making sure that they actually receive something from the training? Because it's not just a compliance box, right? There actually is learning to occur.
Yeah, right. I mean, the first goal is the compliance box. The second goal, and the most important goal in my opinion, is we're trying to change behavior. We're trying to create this awareness. We want to change this behavior. So how do we do it? You have to motivate people. You have to tell people why it matters. But one of the biggest tools I think that we have is getting the learners involved in training. So we talked about all the ways we can make it engaging in the moment. But one thing that I've actually really found instrumental in getting employees to look forward to a training event, right? Because everyone shows up and they're like, oh, another corporate training. And this is going to be so amazing. The next hour of my life, let me just zone out and do whatever, right?
That's actually what people say to me all the time.
I mean, I didn't want to name names. I wasn't going to name names, but I mean, but one thing that I found as a really valuable tool is to create a survey ahead of time. Ask people what they're concerned about. We're dealing with safety, security, all of these important topics to your personal being, but also to the safety culture of the organization. So send out surveys ahead of time. See what people want more information on. See what people are concerned with. So you get their input, and then you say, okay, we're gonna build you a training program. It just so happens that it's gonna meet every compliance objective, but now you got their buy-in, and so now you already have their attention going into this training, even if it's just an e-learning, if it's virtual training, if it's in person, whatever it is, a lunch and learn, micro learning, whatever it looks like, you now have their attention because you involved them in the process. And so now they feel heard, they feel understood, and I feel like I'm going back to this de-escalation training, right?
Yeah.
All the components of making people feel valued, they feel like you actually listen to them. And now you have their attention throughout this training program and they're really involved.
Well, and then you even get the business case from there, right? Because if people feel safe, they're going to be productive, right? And so
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if people have that confidence in the security of their organization, they're going to feel free to do their job, which is exactly what, at least in our area of expertise, talking about preventing violence or situational awareness, de-escalation, these kinds of things, it gives people that assurance that they can just concentrate on their job rather than feeling like they have to look over their shoulder all the time.
Even come back to Stacy's point just for a minute, is I feel like when I'm doing a training engagement, like it almost feels like the best engagements, like coming away from it, is when I feel like the class almost just taught themselves.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
We go into it and we're going to make sure the compliance stuff gets met, right? Everything that needs to be talked about gets talked about. We're going to bring the education, we're going to bring the information, but then involving them in the scenarios and the situations so much that it really does feel like it's just input back and forth. And you're just kind of, as the instructor, just sitting back and giving some left and right limits of where we need to go with this, throwing some prompting questions out. But if 3 hours goes by and like you sit back as an instructor, you realize like, well, I mean, they pretty much just taught themselves the entire thing. And then you've got the buy-in, right? It's always a good feeling when they have that engagement, but I think it comes from them being part of that learning process, part of the development process of what it's going to be that they need as far as information too.
Yeah, I love that you brought up scenario-based training. I mean, that's where we all cut our teeth, right? In the military loves scenario-based training. Why do you think that's so important to the areas of what we teach and the modality of how we teach it? Why do you think it's so important for awareness training, managers and leaders training, de-escalation training, high-risk travel training? Why do you think scenario-based training is so important?
I feel it's so important because one, when you're able to very specifically make a scenario for situations that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and whether they have or somebody else has, but so there's that collective information that can get brought into the scenario, into the role play. But not only that, it stops them from having to stare at a PowerPoint presentation, listen to something, or even watch a video, and it makes them actively participate in the training. And also, so many people are so reluctant at first, as it always is, but you'll get those 1 or 2 people that are able to warm it up. And it's good to be able to have a good instructor that can kind of create that flow and build that rapport so everybody wants to become involved. But so I really think it's really involving them in situations that they deal with all the time, and it pulls them away from staring at the screen. Makes it so much more effective.
You know what's what I find so crucial to this process, though, to scenario-based training, is the audience has to trust you as their instructor. How do you feel or what are the different ways that you build trust with the audience? I know you have a lot of experience in instruction and dealing with this experiential learning. Yeah.
I mean, truly, that's one of the biggest ways I do it. As you guys know, I just burn myself to the ground, and it seemed, it's kind
only
of
one way to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But between that, I think it brings a sense of levity to the environment, because it's not like what we talk about is the most lighthearted topics,
right?
So bringing some levity to the environment, allowing people to feel comfortable, getting to know them personally, asking some of those personalized questions throughout. But then it also is, even kind of going back to what you're talking about, it is that engagement, drawing out from them the content that you're doing. And back in the early days, it's that guided discussion. It's like, we know where we're trying to take this thing. So asking the questions that facilitate them actually completing the objective rather than us just lecturing, it helps create some of that rapport.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great conversation. And I think kind of the secret to our sauce and what we do and our recipe and how we do it is we're really learner focused, and we really take something that seems unapproachable and we make it really approachable, and we make it really relatable. And we have all these different types of modalities that we offer it in. And I think that's really important depending on, time sensitivities and challenges in the workforce, whether, they're wired employees or it's in manufacturing and you only have 5 minutes to watch this video and have someone speak about it. I mean, regardless of, the way the training is delivered, I think we focus on that end user. And I think that's what we do really well.
That's a big piece of it. Yeah. It's looking at it through their lens.
Yeah.
We can share about our experience all the time.
And also at the same point, like, because the topic we covered, as you bring up, but then not necessarily like scaring them into compliance either, right? Because then you have this thing.
Oh, great point.
Because we have active shooter, active assailant training. Yeah. Like, what's the fine line there? Keeping it lighthearted, because we're not necessarily trying to scare them into compliance. We don't want to make it a traumatizing training, right? Keep it lighthearted, but at the same time, it can't be a laughing matter to the extent of people aren't going to take it serious either, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a light subject. So finding that right balance, like, okay, how do I talk about this subject, keep it somewhat lighthearted, but still need people to take it serious? Mm-hmm. And that just comes from time and expertise and practice and knowing your audience and building that rapport.
Yeah, developing that ownership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to wrap it up. I mean, I think we gave a lot of tools, techniques. I hope you found some of these techniques applicable to your workplace and delivering the training to your workplace. I know some of these topics that we deal with, workplace violence, active assailant response, they can be fearful, but lead with the learner. Put the learner first in these. Don't lead with fear. Please follow us, like us, do all the things, and we hope you join our next session.